So, you've watched all these videos of your favourite content creators playing the amazing SCP Containment Breach, and you've gone, yeah, that looks fun, I want to give that a try. And it's gone well, up to a point where... Well, lucky for you, weary SCP player, you've stumbled across the Dumb Shit's Guide to SCP Containment Breach 2021. Look, it's the best I could do, alright? I'm not very good with naming titles. In this episode, we will be covering the Introduction and Light Containment Zone, and then, of course, the Heavy Zone and the Entrance Zone, as well as briefly covering each SCP and event that you will encounter within those sections. You may be wondering why I'm covering the intro to the game, but that's because if you've never played the game before, you're more likely to die before you even start playing it for real. It's also worth pointing out, this series won't cover every single little detail to the game, so if there's a specific thing you need to know, head to the comments. I'm sure someone will help you out down there. Anyway, get your cup of tea ready, because you're gonna do some learning. Okay, as with anything, we are going to be starting with the introduction to the game. The intro acts as the tutorial for all the basic movement and controls that you'll need to remember. But the basics are WASD to move, space to blink, shift to run, and mouse click to interact. Oh, and tab is your inventory. As the game states, you'll need to grab the document located on the table next to you and give it a quick read. It's not super important to read, but it'll give you some lore on your character and how the facility operates. This is also where you encounter your first threat, the SCP facility guards.
Foundation guards. Threat level, not applicable. Guards are defensive personnel within the Foundation. They are used to maintain the control in the site as well as to guard SCPs and Class D personnel. The guards act as defense against possible containment breaches, and to ensure that Class D personnel comply with orders and do not attempt to escape.
The facility guards are a very low-level threat to the player. This doesn't mean you shouldn't pay attention to them. Running away from them or ignoring their commands will try their patience, which will lead to your death. Ignoring them while in your cell will cause them to terminate you there and then with gas. And if you think it's wise to run away from them in a sealed facility, they'll dispose of you with a few well-placed rounds.
What the hell? Hey, stop! He's going away.
For your survival, it's best just to follow them until you get to your destination. When you arrive, you'll be given the document of SCP-173, which is your assignment. It's best to give it a quick read, as it'll give you some information about how SCP-173 behaves and works. Or you could just wait a little bit and I'll explain in a bit more detail, as there are a few details the game doesn't directly tell you. This is now the section of the game where a few threats present themselves. It's advised to listen to what is being said over the intercom to avoid being disposed of. Simply stand in the chamber and keep looking at SCP-173, the big old peanut looking statue over there in the corner. Failure to do so will result in a few rounds being sent your way from the guard watching you from above. The doors behind you will close initially, but will reopen, with the scientist stating there is an issue with the door controls. My personal favourite technique for this part is to hide in the corner where you entered the room. The guard can't shoot you because of the wall, and SCP-173 can't leave his cell because you can still see him. Speaking of SCP-173, he's our next point of interest.
SCP-173. Threat level, Euclid. SCP-173 is constructed from concrete and rebar with traces of Krylon brand spray paint. SCP-173 is animate and extremely hostile. Line of sight must not be broken at any time with SCP-173.
SCP-173 is the main threat to you throughout the entire game. While being unable to move while being looked at, you have the trusty old blink meter to prevent you from just staring at him forever. It goes without saying that 173 moves when you either blink manually, auto-blink, or look away from him. But there are also a few scenarios when he moves without you looking away or blinking. This is when the power goes out. When this happens, it's wise to keep looking in the same direction that SCP-173 already was, as it's likely he's moved closer to you in the time the lights were out. Now, you may be thinking that having a wall between you and 173 would allow him to move as there's no direct line of sight. Well, this game doesn't quite follow that rule. As long as you're looking in his direction, he can't move, be it a door, a wall, another person or SCP you can't move. This can be used to gain vast amounts of
distance,
or use the double door technique, which is where you literally have 2 doors distance before looking away, to make sure you're safe from the stone fella. Having at least one room between you and 173 is advised, because there's a chance that when you look away from 173, he can open a door. This does play a very distinctive sound. It's also wise to close every door behind you, as 173 is extremely fast and can likely catch up to you in under a second, with your back turned. So keep those doors closed and keep away. Oh, and don't blink. Alright, that was a lot to remember, but it's somewhat straightforward from here. After 173 has breached, you need to leave the way you came. You'll hear a guard and scientist trying to escape when 173 appears. It's unwise to try and leave with the guard and scientist still in the room, because if you do, you'll get... Yeah, it's best just to stay on the stairs and wait for everyone to go away before heading onwards. Now we're actually playing the game, you have a list of objectives to complete. These are: find a level 1 keycard, find a level 2 keycard, find SCP-914, locate the CCTV room, and disable the lockdown. After that, you can progress to the heavy zone. So let's start with the first objective, finding the level 1 keycard. Now remember that you are likely to be stalked by SCP-173. So listen out for some stone scraping sounds and creaking. This will let you know that 173 is nearby. A level 1 keycard is held in a few different rooms, such as SCP-970 or the storeroom, also known as the 173 event room. The 173 event can be avoided by keeping eye contact on the door where 2 personnel die and making sure that it stays shut, but it might be worth heading down there to grab the wallet that one of the personnel drops, but it's not 100% necessary and is considerably risky due to 173's close presence. It's also worth grabbing the gas mask and batteries in the storeroom as well, as you're more likely to need them later on. With your trusty level 1 in hand, you need to find another room with everyone's favourite SCP-173 in it, this being the small testing room. It is advised to blink before entering this room because SCP-173 always spawns here. When you open the door, you will need to work fast. On the table, there is a level 2 keycard, and on the filing cabinet is an SNAV, which can be used to great effect later on if you locate SCP-914, so it's worth grabbing. You'll need to do all this while keeping an eye on 173 in the small testing room. Don't let the glass fool you, he will burst through it if you look away or blink. After grabbing what you need, it is best to close the door with the keycard, as 173 can't open keycard locked doors. Now you have the level 2 keycard, you can now get into SCP-914's chamber. You could use the SNAV if you picked it up to make sure you don't get lost and to help locate 914. Its chamber is pretty obvious due to the large heavy doors that will always be closed on arrival. It also has its sign outside, which helps. Once you've found it, you need to upgrade a few things, mainly the level 2 keycard. Put the card in the input section and go to the control panel. Turn it to fine and turn the key. Wait a few seconds, and if everything's gone to plan, you should now have a level 3. Other useful things to do whilst you're here is to put the gas mask on very fine to get the super gas mask. This grants you infinite sprint, which is fantastic for escaping SCPs like 106 and 049. We'll talk about those two later. Putting the SNAV on very fine gives you the SNAV Ultimate, which shows you the entire map and the rough location of SCPs near you. And if you fancy, there's a medkit on the shelves in 914's room as well. Putting that on fine gives you a small medkit, which is a little more versatile than the big medkit due to its faster healing. If you want to know about all the interactions with 914, I did a series on it years ago. Check that series out in the description, it'll be down there somewhere. Now, depending how long all this has taken you, you may or may not have faced someone other than SCP-173. You probably noticed the black pool at the start of the game consuming some of the office equipment, and that certainly wasn't SCP-173. And all this waiting around in SCP-914's chamber is certainly going to attract some attention. So, we're going to now be talking about SCP-106.
SCP-106. Threat level: Keeper. SCP-106 appears to be an elder humanoid with a general appearance of advanced decomposition. SCP-106 causes a corrosion effect in all solid matter it touches, engaging a physical breakdown in materials several seconds after contact. SCP-106 is capable of passing through solid matter, leaving behind a large patch of its corrosive mucus.
SCP-106 is nightmare fuel, and is a complete change of pace to 173. While a lot slower than the player, he makes up for it in certain abilities. Doors won't slow his progress at all, nor will walls really, as he can walk straight through them. You may think running away from a very slow creature is a good idea, and while yes, running away is a good idea, 106 can simply teleport closer to you if you gain too much distance. So don't think running to the opposite end of the facility is a perfectly good idea. The best way to deal with 106 is to use a 𝗘𝗔𝗥𝗟𝗬. I'm sure you've already seen one of these or probably died to it before, as they're a bit tricky to navigate. However, they're also very effective at removing 106 temporarily. Simply bait him into walking into it, and it will force him to return to his pocket dimension. However, if you can't find 𝗘𝗔𝗥𝗟𝗬, the other way to lose 106 is to either keep running until 106 gets bored or tired, not sure which. He will simply disappear after a while of chasing you to come get you later. Oh, and if you've managed to get SCP-1499, using that will instantly remove 106, so use that if you have it. Now, I'll be covering the pocket dimension in a future mini video to keep this one a bit shorter, as this is going to be a long one I can tell, so keep an eye out for that one. But basically, try not to get caught by him, and you won't have to worry about it, or fall into one of his pocket dimension traps found in the 3-way corridors. Now that you know how to deal with 106, and you've got yourself a level 3 keycard and some other goodies, it's time to find the surveillance room. You'll need to find it so you can deactivate the lockdown to the heavy zone. This may lead you to find an elevator to go down, which is the only working set of elevators in the entire light zone. This, of course, will lead you to another threat, SCP-939.
SCP-939. Threat level, Keter. SCP-939 are endothermic, pack-based predators which display atrophy of various systems similar to 𝗘𝗔𝗥𝗦𝗥𝗦 organisms. SCP-939's primary method of luring prey is the imitation of human speech in the voices of prior victims, though imitation of other species and active nocturnal hunts have been documented. Prey is usually killed with a single bite to the cranium or neck.
Now, I won't go into too much detail about this section because it's rather simple. There are 3 SCP-939s down in this area with you, and each one follows a set pattern by going on a patrolling loop. SCP-939 can easily hear your movements, so keeping your distance and moving only when they're far away from you is advised. In this section you can find a severed hand and a pair of night vision goggles. While neither are needed, they can help later on by bypassing doors and obviously being able to see in the pitch black. What you're looking for is a lever that opens the door so you can progress to the other elevator. Again, keep away from SCP-939 and only move when they are as far away as possible. Accidentally triggering SCP-939 is normally a death sentence, but you can break their somewhat poor pathfinding by going around sharp corners. SCP-939 is faster than you and will always catch up to you in a straight line. Get past all 3 and flip the lever and head to the next elevator and you're home free. Now that you've made it through the fun part of the facility, it's time to get that lockdown sorted. And as you can probably already guess, it's not going to be as easy as you'd like it to be. The CCTV room is a somewhat tricky room to deal with. It's simple in concept with just one lever to switch to leave the light zone. There is a small chance that SCP-173 can spawn in this room, making the event incredibly difficult. So if you're playing on Keter mode, it would be advised to enter the room carefully and check each corner of the room. If there is no 173, then you've got an easier time. Simply walk into the room with a wall covered in TV screens and flip the switch. This, however, is when you finally face SCP-049.
SCP-049. Threat level, Euclid. SCP-049 is a humanoid entity, roughly 1.9 meters in height, which bears the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. SCP-049 will become hostile with individuals it sees as being affected by the pestilence, often having to be restrained should it encounter such. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will generally attempt to kill said individual.
SCP-049 is the second most consistent threat, only being bested by 173. 049, while slow and unable to go through walls, is not hindered by anything. He can simply open any unlocked door and will not be stopped by the 𝗘𝗔𝗥𝗟𝗬 or other SCPs, other than SCP-714. But even that is only temporary. In this event there is no way to avoid him. There is only one exit and the same way that you came in. However, 049 doesn't know that you're in the room, so you can hide from him. There are 2 places that you can reliably do this. The safest way is to run to this spot behind the servers as you flip the switch. Hide in this spot until 049 has left the room and his music stops. The other, riskier way is to hide at the end of this desk and crouch. 049 during his speech will look around the desk, so moving to stay out of sight is needed if you want to remain undetected. From this point on, 049 can spawn around the facility, and if he sees you, he will chase you, albeit at a rather slow speed. He can also open doors and will leave them open, allowing other SCPs like 173 to chase you easier. However, even if you get detected, simply just running away from him and keeping distance is your best bet. 1499 will not make SCP-049 disappear, so it can't be used reliably to avoid him. However, if all has been successful in the CCTV room and you flick the lever, you can now head towards any of the checkpoints to head to the heavy zone. Before you head to the heavy zone, it is advised to grab a few more items before you leave the light zone. This being SCP-860, the blue key, SCP-1499 if you haven't grabbed it, and maybe a few batteries if you don't have any yet. Now simply head towards the checkpoint, which are to the north of the facility, and head on through using a level 3 keycard. Want to know more about the heavy zone? Well, maybe you should subscribe. I plan on continuing this series if it does well, as it's a big change from my usual stuff, so if you like it or have any criticisms, subscribe, like, and maybe leave a comment. I read them no matter when you comment. Any other questions? Well, maybe join my Discord, and me and some other members of my community can help. Check the description for my important links. Anyway, I think this video's gone on for long enough, and I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Toodaloos.